Good morning, good morning. Welcome to our Talks with Anthony. Today we're going to have a insightful conversation. For those that are new to the channel, we make mental health conversations and content that's going to be beneficial to your personal development in addition to your well-being, right? In today's conversation, we're talking about separating identity from our mistakes. We got to take into consideration because making a mistake is human, right? We're human. We got to be able to learn from them, right? We shouldn't be beating ourselves up, right? Have compassion, have some love for yourself. You ain't the only one that's going through the same thing, right? So by turning it into who you are, is about keeping you stuck, right? So I don't want you to be able to make it seem as if that, right, this is a part of your identity, you're stuck, right? So I want you to separate your identity from who you are, right, from your mistakes, right? They don't define you, right? You're able to learn from them, you're able to grow from them, right? And it doesn't just keep you trapped in regards to this is where you're at in life, right? So I want us to normalize and de-shame. So stick with me, grow with me. We're gonna be able to learn throughout this video. So our first key point off rip, right? So many people internalize mistakes as a personal flaw, right? They take it personal, they take it in, right? And they have a rough time kind of just letting it go or forgiving themselves, right? So this is a tendency to say, I am a failure, right? For some individuals out there, right? Instead of this, I failed at this, right? So it's two different mindsets. I want you guys to take in consideration that you may have failed at something, but it doesn't make you a failure. You don't got to be able to latch on to that actual situation, right? So this pattern often develops from environments, right, where mistakes are felt unsafe or defining, right? Some of us come from also to dysfunctional dynamics and environments, right? So some people make you more shameful, right? Based off of, for instance, you may have got a bad grade. You're stupid, right? You're dumb, right? Saying these things. I want you to take consideration that no, you're not dumb, right? We're learning, we're growing, and people have different educational, developmental disabilities, or they may take them some more time to comprehend, right? So everybody's learning experience and growth is going to be different. That's why it's called IEP, Individual Education Plan. And that's something that even for myself, I had, and I had it took me time to get back, right? But at the end of the day, as long as you're growing, as long as you're learning, as long as you're showing up for yourself. And the big word that I feel like is really important when it comes to education off rip is E, in regards to the letter, and it is effort, right? So as long as you're showing up for yourself, right? You got your backpack, you're in that classroom, you're really trying to learn and apply yourself. That's really just all that matters, right? So I really want us to take that in consideration, right? So once again, you don't have to take on the mindset that, I am a failure. You could fail at something, right? But let's just, let's get back into it, right? So some psychoeducation that's going to keep us grounded is understanding that the brain is wired to generate, from negative experiences, right? When we live in a negative world, right, we're just normalizing, it's kind of normalized in regards to our process and how we operate. So I really want us to have, like I said, some time for us to have that solitude to check ourselves, because sometimes we got to have that self-awareness and be more intuitive to understand, like, where are these thoughts coming from? Why do I feel this way? Why am I talking myself down? Why is this regular, right? And that's what I'm saying. We got to have that positive mindset to encourage ourselves to really realize, like, no, this ain't it. This ain't that, right? This ain't, feel me? These situations they don't define me, right? So that's why we're having this video. That's why we're having this conversation, because I really want us to take in consideration, like, where is our brain really at, right? And like I said, it generates from negative experiences, right? So this creates an identity, right, that have leveled beliefs from negative events based off what the situation happened that impacts us, right? So when identity is tied to our mistakes, the nervous system shifts from protection, right? Avoidance, perfectionism shuts down, right? So this also is tied into anxiety as well. This makes us feel uncomfortable at times as well, but I want us to take in consideration, because our mistakes don't define us. Mistakes are events, right? Identity is a story, and even that, right, they're not the same thing. So we gotta be able to, like I said, have a to be able to separate the differences. So some practical reframing in regards to how to separate identity from mistakes, right? So use language to separate you from the outcome. Like I said, you got to be able to have this internal dialogue with yourself, speak to yourself in a kind way, right? Positive mindset, right? And separating where are these thoughts or where are these beliefs coming from, right? So you don't have to impact your identity and who you are as a person towards these experiences, these mistakes or these situations, right? So focus on the behavior, right? Not the self-worth. Treat the mistakes as data, right? Not definitions. That's why I always advocate for, if you have time, get yourself a journal, write things down, be intuitive with yourself. How is you doing with your day, right? And really apply yourself. I just did mine this morning. I ain't gonna sit here and talk about it if I ain't doing it, you feel me? So I want you guys to know that I really want you guys to spend the time with yourself, be more intuitive, grow with yourself, understand yourself. Where are these thoughts coming from? Why am I talking myself down? What is my environment? Who was telling me this when I was younger, right? Like, what are these influences around me, right? Use this as data, right? Don't define yourself by these definitions or these experiences once again, right? So you are not the outcome. you're the person learning from it, right? And we're able to grow, and you're able to, in your personal development, right, see yourself as you grow later on. You can look at these experiences like, yo, that was me. That was old me, right? And this is me now, right? And I'm happy with myself. I'm able to love myself, right? With the positive mindset, right? So let's get back into it, right? So in regards to micro action, to immediately apply some things to our life, because when we know better, we do better, right? So I really want us to get that information, right? So after a mistake, I want you to pause and name what happened. You know what I mean? Write it down if possible. I mean, keep track of these things, right? And then ask yourself, what can this teach me? What can I learn from this, right? Let's use some logic. Let's use some critical thinking. What's going on right now, right? What is this teaching me? So avoid the global statements about yourself. Avoid the critiques of what other people got to say about you. Avoid, you know what I mean, the negative, you know what I mean, negativity, and really just have that self and that love, that dialogue with yourself, so you're able to have this critical thinking, so you're able to learn and move on, right? Forgive yourself, move on, right? So describe the mistake like you would to someone else, right? Someone that you love, right? Same way you're able to treat someone else with that exceptional service, right? A friend, cousin, brother, sibling, friend, you know what I mean, et cetera, right? You need to be able to treat yourself that same way. So without turning it into judgment, I want you to have that, like I said, that compassion, right? So pulling this video together, right? Growth requires space for imperfection. We gotta be able to, like I said, we ain't supposed to be walking on a fine line. You know what I mean? Life be lifing. We gotta be able to learn from these experiences, right? So you don't grow by making mistakes, right? Or never making mistakes, right? You got to have these mistakes. These mistakes happen for a reason, right? But like I said, you don't have to become them. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define who you are, right? You're magnificent. You're amazing. But like I said, you got to channel yourself, have that dialogue with yourself, and be able to take in consideration of a positive mindset. See yourself in a way that, like how other people see you, right? Hopefully in a positive way, but in a real way, for real. I want you to take in consideration that you got to be able to, like I said, separate yourself from the negativity, separate yourself from the situations, the mistakes, right? Because they don't define you. You're still able to learn from them, able to grow from them, right? But if you found this video beneficial, give it a thumbs up, share, pause, and I'll see you on the next one. Stay blessed.